Okay, grade 11, we learned about XYR ratios. So when you are at an angle anywhere on the circle, we drew right triangles. And once you have a right triangle drawn, that activates our SOHCAHTOA stuff. So when I talk about the ratio of, let's say, sine is considered the opposite over the hypotenuse. So in this triangle, it'd be the y divided by the r. Okay? So that's where you get these sine ratios from, y divided by r. It's because it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. Okay? That's the way they get that. So I know last year I said pick whatever method you like. If you like SOHCAHTOA, that's fine. If you like the XYR formulas, that's fine. But in grade 12, you get no formulas. Okay, I put them on the back of your formula sheet for now, but you do not get that on the exam. So that's why this little song or acronym, so you're really cute, X-rated, thank you, excellent, kind of helps you put those together. And if you just forget, just go to SOHCAHTOA, because that's something you will always kind of remember. So if I have a right triangle, well, cosine. This is the adjacent, this is the hypotenuse. And then r, if we are on the unit circle, what is the radius value? On the unit circle specifically, the radius is 1. Okay, so the SOHCAHTOA or the XYR ratios. So sine is y over r. So you're really cute. X-rated. Thank you, excellent. Okay, it's also the same as opposite hypotenuse, opposite adjacent. That's all last year. So in grade 12, we're going to add 3 more trig functions. And these trig functions you've never heard of. These trig functions are not on your calculator. So cosecant is a new one. It's the reciprocal of sine. So it's if I flip the sign around, so the ratio of it would be r over y. Another one you're going to learn this year is called secant, and it's the reciprocal of cosine. So 1 over cos, so if I flip the cos ratio, it would be r over x. And the last one is called cotangent, so it's the reciprocal of the tangent function. So if we reciprocate tan, our new ratio would be x over y. Okay, this is what I don't like about it. Cotangent and tangent, that makes sense. But these ones, do you notice that the C word and the S word and the C word? So that's how I always remember it. The C and the S actually get matched up. Okay, question 1 is I picked from your grade 11 booklet. A coordinate goes through 5, -12. So do you understand I would be in quadrant 4? Because this would be 5, -12, right? You would land there. So on this side would be 5 long, and this side would be 12 long. Can you figure out r for me? How do you do r in this example? Pythagorean theorem? So 5 squared plus 12 squared.
Oh, no. Subtract.
No, it's add.
Oh,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. because it's a hypotenuse I want, and that's the biggest, so I add. Okay. Don't forget to square root. So 13, if anybody did it. I think probably by the end of the year you'll have just that triangle memorized, 5, 12, 13. Okay, let's do the order of, so you're really cute, X-rated, thank you. So sine of this angle is what over what? So sine of this angle is negative 12 over 13. Cos of this angle is cute, x rated, so 5 over 13. And tan of this angle is, thank you, excellent, so negative 12 over 5. Do you remember Astica? You do. So if I'm in this quadrant, what do I know about my trig values? If I'm in the C quadrant, what do you know about your trig values? Cosine is positive, and the others should be negative trig values, and that is true. Okay? Do you also remember me saying this? This is a general rule that keeps going. Don't put the negatives in your math. Put the negatives in your locations and your answers, right? So when I did Pythagorean theorem, I'm not doing it with a negative 12, right? I'm just doing it with just the value 12. Okay, so that was grade 11. So let's look at what other things we can do now. So the cos of the angle is this, and the angle's in quadrant 2. So I know the angle's in quadrant 2. Do you remember me always connecting my reference angles to the x-axis? Do you know that we never ever went to the y-axis, right? Do you always remember that? Always to the x. Okay, cos is considered what? So you're really cute, x-rated. So my x value is negative 3, and my r value is 5. Can you figure out this side of my triangle? So Pythagorean theorem again, add or subtract style. Subtract. So I'm going to do 5 squared subtract 3 squared. I have nothing to do with the negative 3 right now because I don't want to do it in my math. Just 5 squared minus 3 squared. Did you get 4 when you were done? Can you ask yourself this? Is it a positive or a negative 4 because of its location? Positive. It's positive, yeah. X's and Y's, you always got to make sure your positive or negatives are correct. R, radius, is always positive. Find the cosecant of the angle. I guess I forgot to mention the abbreviation. This is cosecant, the 3 letters that you'll see. Are you okay if I back it up for a second? Cosecant. Secant. And cotangent. They usually use 3 letters for them all, so that's what you would see in your book. Cosecant is like that, secant, and cotangent. Those would be the abbreviations. Okay, so do you have it memorized, or you can look on something? What is cosecant? It's the change of the sine one, and sine was so you're really cute. So sine was that, so I need to flip. So I need an R and then a Y. So it would look like this. I need an R and then I need a Y. So that's my answer. And if sine is positive on the Astica stuff, cosecant is positive as well. Those will always line up like that, positives and negatives. Okay, this time, if secant is this ratio and it's in quadrant 3, so I'm in quadrant 3, secant is what over what? I need letters. I need 2 letters for a fraction. Secant is an R divided by an X. Okay, this does not make sense. I can't have a radius of negative 20. So I'm going to put 20 there. Are you okay to understand the negative is actually on the 7 because it's an X value over there to the left? Okay. Here's why. In math doesn't write fractions like this with a negative bottom. Okay? It's not wrong, but math is just not that we write it like that. So understanding that just one of these things is negative. Okay, so find me the third side. So 20 squared, subtract 7 squared. Okay, I'm getting that this number is not going to square root nicely. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah.
Okay, then we don't square root it. If something is not square rooting, we just leave it. Because there's no rounding ever allowed, so you can't put it into a decimal. So the y value is root 351. Check it out. Is it positive or negative? Negative, because it's a y value below. And then the last part is to actually answer the question, find the sine. So sine theta equals what divided by what? I need a y and then an r, right? A y and then an r. So I need negative root 351 over 20. Done. That's it. That's your answer. Okay, I think I'm skipping the next one if you're okay with that. Okay, this one is different because it didn't tell me what quadrant I'm in. So let's talk about Astica here. I don't even know what quadrant I'm in. So it told me that secant is negative. If it's telling me secant is negative, it also will translate to the opposite, the flipped one. What's secant the flip of? Cos. So it's telling me that cos will also be negative. Give me some options. What quadrants could I be in? Do you want me to tell you the trick again? Do you remember that trick with Astica? Maybe you don't, so I'll just tell you it from last year. So here was the trick. Sine deals with y, so sine was always up, down. Cos deals with x. Do you remember this stuff? So cos always splits left, right. And tan was always splitting diagonally because it's y divided by x. So when you divide two positive numbers, it's positive. When you divide two negative numbers, it's positive. Here you would be dividing negative, positive, positive, negative. So that was the fast way to think about Astica. Okay, so cos is negative, so I could be in those ones. And this says sine is negative, less than 0. Sine is negative, so I'm in the bottoms. So I would end up in 3. Okay, it gave me secant. What letters did it give me then? So it's okay if you're looking on your formula sheet for now. It's the R and the X. So R is 41. It has to be positive. You can't put negative on a radius. And X then would take the negative. And that makes sense in my drawing. Can you find the third side? This one comes out nicely, doesn't it? Square rootable. Positive or negative 40? I should be negative. Okay, final question. Determine the cotangent ratio for this angle. So the cotangent, now you have to go back to thinking about what's your letters? X over y. So x over y. And I would not write it like this. I don't know if I'd even have to take a point off or not, but what should I do with this? Just turn it into a positive. Yeah. Okay, and it makes sense with Astica, right? If I'm in the T quadrant, cotangent would be positive. Do you also notice how I have my 3 components of my equation? You always write a trig function, an angle equals a trig value. You always have to have your 3 components. You can't write cotangent equals. I would have to mark you a half point off because you're not writing it properly. Okay, a couple more questions to go. A point on the unit circle in quadrant 3 has an x coordinate of negative 7 over 25. So I only have one value on my triangle, or do I? Seems like we should always know 2 sides of our triangle. What do you know? Unit circle means the radius is 1. Okay, you obviously can't do work in a triangle if you only know one side. So that was the given info. All right, you can do fractions if you like. As in, you can do like 1 squared minus 7 over 25 squared and fraction stuff. Or I can make your life easier. Do you know when you're working on a computer and you blow up something? Like drag it and make it bigger? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this 25 times bigger. I'm going to blow it up. If I blow this up by 25, 1 turns into a 25. What happens to this fraction? Just negative 7 now. Does this math look easier than that math? And remember, you would probably have a calculator, I guess, right now with the 25 squared. So 24 negative so the question says, what is the cosecant of this angle? So then you're looking for what letter over what letter? R over y, so 25 over negative 24, but you won't really see me writing negative 24 on the bottom. You would just see me writing a negative fraction. Negative fraction. Okay, I am just going to go back to one thing on this question. What if I said write the coordinate? Write the whole coordinate, so x comma y. Write the whole coordinate. What would you do if I had asked that question? I didn't ask that, but I'm going to go a little further here. Write the coordinate. So this is negative 7 over 25 is the x coordinate. What would be the exact y coordinate here? So don't forget we blew this up. So how do we go back to the original here? Divide by 25. So that would be what the coordinate would end up being. So you might run into a question like that, or it might say determine the exact y coordinate. That would be your answer, or write the whole coordinate, or things like that. You have to pay attention to what it's asking. Are you okay if I skip the next question? It's the exact same. You're good with how I blew it up and then shrank it down? Okay, then just the last one. Simplify this expression. So cosecant. What over what? What is cosecant again? What letter over what letter? R over y, you say? Divided by, and then I'm going to replace cotangent with a, nope, is it x over y? So I replaced with the letters, the fractions that I know. How do you divide a fraction by a fraction? What would you ever do with that? Multiply, flip. Multiply, flip. Ooh, look, something happens. Cancel. And you get an r divided by an x. Does that match anything that's different? It matches the secant. So then you would write secant theta because this was theta. Okay? So I'm just going to politely remind you of writing that you always write trig function and an angle. They always go together like that.